The night shifted as you opened your eyes. Something ancient moved quietly within you. A soft awakening rose like a tide beneath your ribs. Between one breath and the next, a remembering stirred. You felt the world tilt as if it recognized you. You have lived a human day in a human world. You tried to be simple, to be understandable, yet rooms changed when you entered them. People turned, subtly sensing something in you. Not only light but shadow traveled with you. They could not name it, yet they reacted to it. You felt it along the skin of your spirit. You carried long silences inside your chest. Your heart learned to speak in whispers. You listened to gaps between words. You heard truths hidden behind polite tones. This was not learning, this was remembering. Your inner compass kept turning. It pointed toward a place your mind could not map. You felt dawn and storm living under your skin. The paradox shaped you with precision. There was a night on a quiet city street. Lamps glowed and rain marked the pavement. You walked past a familiar corner. Your steps slowed without reason. The sidewalk felt like a thin threshold. Inside the cafe, voices hummed warmly. Outside, your breath curled in the cool air. You stood still, and the moment thickened. An old echo rose from within. You were not lost. You were between chapters. A door inside you was about to open. Breathe. Stay here. Let this moment land. You did not come here to perform goodness. You came to remember your full range. The light in you guides. The shadow in you guards. Both are sacred parts of you. Without the guard, the guide is hunted. Without the guide, the guard becomes a wall. Balance lives in quiet clarity. It is the spine that holds you steady. Inside seen your room dim and still. Only the fridge hummed in the background. Your phone screen glowed with messages. A familiar name appeared again. Their words often sounded caring, yet felt heavy. Your chest tightened with sudden clarity. You placed the phone face down. Your palms rested on the table. You rose and walked to the window. The city breathed and lights flickered. You felt a click deep inside. Not here, not anymore. Breathe. Let that click widen in you. You learned to see through illusions. You sensed threads beneath moments. You knew hunger from calling. When someone tried to drink from your light, your inner night formed a shield. Not rigid, not violent. It simply returned what was not yours. Explanation belonged to older seasons. Now you moved with grounded trust. Real world scene late afternoon at work. A meeting with polite voices around you. Slides glowed with lines and numbers. A colleague spoke in practiced circles. You felt a knot forming in the air. You asked one simple question. Your tone soft yet precise. The room shifted as truths surfaced. Contradictions rose like bubbles through water. No pressure from you was needed. The truth pressed itself into view. Eyes softened and shoulders slumped. The knot dissolved into clarity. You were not seeking victory. You were choosing alignment. Stay. Let the relief arrive. Your boundaries were iron woven with silk. Some called them cold once. Cold lacked life and heart. Your boundaries were warm with breath. They kept the sanctum intact. Old patterns sometimes knocked again. You heard them and did not invite them in. You did not hate them. You did not feed them. You let them pass through like weather. Another gathering with soft music. Small talk floated in the space. You were not trying to shine. You simply existed with quiet presence. Across the room, someone carried a storm. Envy shaped like a gentle smile. A story crafted to pull energy. The air trembled around them. They approached with sugar words. Your breath slowed, your gaze steady. Their phrases tangled around themselves. Their certainty thinned into confusion. The mask slipped without confrontation. The room felt the subtle tremor. You did not expose them. You simply remained real. The mirror did the work. Breathe. One breath, one more. You were not only a beacon, you were the weather before the light returns. Your darker traits were instruments, not flaws. Ruthless clarity lived beside tenderness. You knew when to walk away. You felt sorrow, yet stayed true. You chose emptiness over contamination. You chose quiet over draining noise. At times, life moved faster around you. Actions ricocheted with speed. Choices rippled through time. Those who aimed harm at you felt weight. This was not revenge. This was equilibrium in motion. Your field returned what did not belong. You kept your side honest. You forgave without reopening the door. Mercy without self-abandonment. A high form of love and responsibility. Symbolic tale in a dreamlike place. You stood before a door without handle. The wood dark and smooth. Soft voices moved beyond the door. You lifted your hand, and it opened. A hallway of low light stretched before you. At the end, a mirror waited. You walked without sound. In the reflection, you saw many selves. Child healer, warrior, watcher of thresholds. Storm and dawn woven as one. You bowed your head in recognition. The faces breathed into one presence. Pause in stillness. Feel the recognition settling within you. You began acting from deeper truth. Choices became simple and clean. If something fed your purpose, you moved. If it fractured your center, you released it. You stopped asking permission to honor your life. You stopped carrying the weight of others' reactions. Some stepped back, some stepped forward. Both movements were sacred. The road cleared before you. The thread pulled gently ahead. Your compass pointed beyond old maps. You shifted rooms without trying. Surface stories lost power near you. Hidden currents rose to awareness. Others sometimes felt chaos around you. They blamed you at times. You felt the pull to soften truth. You breathed instead and held steady. Dust settled in its own time. What remained was real and durable. One more morning in your kitchen. Steam lifted from your cup. Your phone buzzed again. The same voice asking for the easiest you. The reflex to appease stirred. Then the tide turned inside. You typed a clear, kind sentence. You sent it with quiet certainty. No apology, no defense. You stepped outside into fresh air. Birds rose from a wire, turning as one. You felt yourself turn with them. Not away from love, toward alignment with truth. Breathe. Let your ribcage widen. This was not becoming someone else. This was remembering yourself. The chosen one was a sensation. The moment you stopped arguing with inner wisdom. The hush when path and soul matched. The soft vow kept in the dark and in the light. The world responded to your coherence. Respect replaced tolerance. Right doors opened without struggle. Wrong doors closed without noise. Your energy returned with interest. You slept deeper and woke clearer. Some days, storm moved before dawn again. You no longer feared the rain. You stood in it without losing fire. Stay. Let this root within you. Light guided and shadow protected. Light healed and shadow enforced the boundary. Light inspired and shadow demanded honesty. Two wings of the same bird. Two hands of the same maker within. When they moved together, you rose. This was not the beginning. This was the remembering. You felt the next doorway waiting. The compass turned again. If this found you, write 333. Stay close, more is coming for you. The silence shifted the moment. Morning touched your window. Something in you listened before you understood. A soft awakening moved like a thread beneath your ribs. Between yesterday and now, an inner voice shaped a remembering. You did not plan this choice. You felt it as a small, steady pull, a calling that did not shout, a whisper that knew your name. You breathed, and the world answered. You breathed, and your body knew. You carried long years of explaining yourself. You carried reasons that never felt like truth. Today the reasons felt thin. Today the voice felt real. Not loud, not urgent, certain. You walked through an ordinary kitchen. You touched the cup and felt heat on your palms. The steam rose like a quiet sign. It was not magic. It was noticing. You leaned against the counter. You listened to your heartbeat. You felt a shift, like dawn, behind your sternum. Awakening did not arrive with thunder. It arrived with breath. It arrived with one clear sentence: "You are safe to hear yourself." You stood very still and let that land. You remembered all the times you quieted your knowing. You remembered every moment you laughed to smooth the edges. You remembered the rooms that asked you to be smaller. You remembered the promises that asked you to be useful. You felt the cost of those bargains. You did not judge yourself. You thanked the self who kept you breathing. Then you let the old agreements loosen. They fell away without a sound. Inside your chest, a doorway brightened. The inner voice stepped forward. Its words moved like water, soft, true. You are not late. You are not behind. You are right on the threshold. Breathe. Stay here. Let this moment land. You took your phone in your hand. A familiar name lit the screen. You felt the tug to answer with comfort. You felt the older you reach for the script. You paused. The quiet voice spoke. Choose the path that keeps your center intact. You typed a small, clear line. You pressed send with steady hands. The room did not cheer. The world did not flash. Yet, the gravity in your life shifted. You felt the axis move. You felt your feet meet the ground. Inside, a memory unfurled. A hallway from childhood, with dust in the light. A door at the far end that never opened. You walked toward it again, inside your mind. Your steps were gentle and sure. You reached the door and touched the wood. You heard a murmur like 1,000 soft rivers. You pushed, and it gave without force. On the other side, you found a small table. On the table rested a compass. The needle pointed toward your ribs. You smiled without thinking. You lifted the compass and felt it hum. You knew then the direction was not out there. It was in here. Breathe. One breath. One more. You returned to the day. The city moved, as it always did. Traffic rolled. Voices rose and fell. Yet the ground under your attention had changed. You no longer searched for signs above your head. You watched for the shift within your chest. A co-worker asked for your time. Their words wore a friendly shape. Your body heard a weight beneath them. Your inner voice spoke again. Not now. You smiled with warmth. You offered a clear boundary. No apology. No defensiveness. The moment held. It did not break. The request slid past like rain on glass. You felt light return to your shoulders. You walked to the window. You watched leaves move along the sidewalk. You felt the same movement inside you. Old stories loosening their hold. New space forming where you once compressed yourself. The voice was not a command. It was a quiet knowing. Turn left. Say less. Rest now. Wait. Go. Stay. Simple words. Each one opened a door. You did not need to justify them. You honored them with action. Movement changed the air around you. You stood up when your legs trembled. You stepped away from what was familiar. You crossed a threshold without a map. You placed your hand on your chest and felt heat. You knew the heat was not fear. It was permission. You walked outside at dusk. The sky held both blue and ember. Crossroads waited at the end of your street. No signs. Only the pull of the thread. You chose the unlit side road. Your steps were slow and honest. Your thoughts tried to bargain. Your voice stayed quiet and clear. Keep walking. You did. The road curved toward a small park. Children had gone home. The swings moved a little in the breeze. You sat on a bench that remembered many lives. You listened. You heard the low song of evening. You heard the soft names of your joys. You heard the soft names of your losses. You did not sort them. You let them be near each other. The voice threaded them together without trying. This is your life. Whole, not half. The wind cooled your skin. The ground warmed your feet. You stayed until the streetlights woke. You walked home taller. You cooked a small meal. You ate with attention. You washed your plate with care. You felt the holiness of simple motion. You moved through your room like someone returning home. You turned off the bright light. You left the lamp on low. You sat at the edge of your bed. You placed your palms on your knees. You closed your eyes. The voice met you in the quiet. You do not need to perform your purpose. You need to live from it. You do not need to chase your calling. You need to listen to where it already lives. You felt your breath answer. You felt your spine lengthen. You felt a steady warmth fill your throat. You did not force meaning. You let meaning arrive like tide. Breathe. Stay. Let the tide move through. A memory returned from a year that felt heavy. Someone had tried to drink from your light. They wrapped need in praise. They wrapped control in care. You saw it now without bitterness. You saw the way your inner voice tried to warn you then. You heard how you overrode it to keep peace. You placed a hand on your heart. You said a line inside your mind. I am sorry I ignored you. I hear you now. Warmth rose under your hand. Not a flare. A glow. Your throat softened. Your belly softened. Your jaw unclenched. The room felt larger. You thanked your body for holding the cost all this time. You promised to carry truth with kindness. You promised to keep your sanctuary intact. You opened your eyes, and the world felt level. You lay down. You watched the ceiling like a quiet sky. You let your breath slow. Inside the hush, you saw a small doorway again. You walked through with your attention. You entered a field of tall grass at night. Crickets spoke in a language older than thought. At the far end, a figure waited. You walked closer and saw that it was you, not the you from today, the you from a time before this time. They held the same compass you found this morning. They placed it on your palm. They spoke with your own voice. Go where the inner wind is warm. Go where the inner wind is clear. Then they turned and walked into the grass. You woke with a soft intake of air. Your room returned. The lamp glowed like a small moon. You sat up and placed your feet on the floor. You felt the compass in your hand, though nothing was there. You smiled anyway. You stood and walked to the window. The city rested. You felt rest settling in you. The voice was not going anywhere. It lived here now, at the center of you. You whispered a simple vow inside your chest. I will not leave myself again. No lightning, no crowd, just truth. You turned off the lamp and lay down. Sleep came like a tide without a wave. Morning would arrive in its own clean way. For now, stillness was the teacher. For now, the remembering did the work. You did not need to push. You did not need to prove. You needed to remain. Breathe. Stay here. Let this chapter root. Your light guides and your shadow guards. Your light heals, and your shadow protects the edge where healing happens. Your light inspires, and your shadow demands honesty. When both move together, the path steadies under your feet. When both move together, you rise. This was not a beginning. This was a deeper layer of the same remembering. You can feel the next doorway already forming in the dark. You do not have to find it. You only have to keep listening. If this found you, write 333. Stay close, more is coming for you. The night did not feel like night anymore. It felt like a curtain drawn back just enough for you to see the outline of something waiting. You woke with a quiet awareness resting on your skin. Not heavy, not loud, present. You sat at the edge of your bed, and the air around you felt thinner than before, as if a layer had been removed from the world. You blinked once, and the room looked the same. You blinked again, and something inside you whispered, look, not with your eyes. With the part of you that remembers. You inhaled and felt your breath travel all the way down to the ground. You exhaled, and something old loosened inside your chest. You had seen your reflection many times before, but today the mirror would not show you a face. It would show you a truth. You stood and walked toward the quiet light of the window. The glass held your silhouette. Your outline was familiar. Your presence was not. You watched yourself breathing, the rise, the fall. For a moment you felt like both the one watching and the one being seen. You placed your hand on the cool glass. A pulse answered from within. The reflection shifted. Not in the mirror, in you. Breathe. Stay here. Let this moment land. You remembered the roles you learned to play. The polite one, the capable one, the strong one, the one who held others without ever being held. You saw them lined up like masks on a shelf. Each mask shaped by survival, none shaped by soul. You reached for the first mask with your awareness. It dissolved like mist. No anger, no grief, just release. You saw the next mask and the next. Each one softened under the weight of your seeing. You did not fight them. You thanked them. They served you once. They kept you safe until you learned to breathe inside your own skin. An inner scene rose from memory, a classroom with bright lights and eager noise. You answered questions the way they wanted, not the way you knew. You dimmed the strange parts of you to stay accepted. You left the room praised but hollow. The memory lingered like dust in sunlight. You watched your younger self sit alone at lunch, quiet, observing, not lonely, just aware. You reached across time with your attention. You placed a hand on that younger shoulder. The child looked up at you without fear. They knew you. They always had. Maybe you have felt this before. You walked back into your present body. A warmth traveled up your spine. You felt the pieces of you begin to return. The ones you hid, the ones you muted, the ones the world called too much or too strange. They gathered inside your ribs like birds coming home. You placed a hand on your heart. It thudded once with clarity. This is me, not the version shaped to fit in rooms. The one shaped by truth. The quiet voice from the last chapter rose again. This time it did not whisper. It spoke like a steady stream. I am here. I never left. You closed your eyes. Images surfaced without your control. A moment you stayed silent when you wanted to speak. A moment you agreed when your body said no. A moment you laughed when your spirit was aching. You watched them with soft eyes. Not shame. Recognition. You saw the exact second you abandoned yourself each time. And still, you did not turn away. Something inside you softened. Something inside you forgave. Breathe. Stay. Let the softening land. Later that day, you walked past a shop window. Your reflection followed you in the glass. But this time, you saw through it. You saw a layer beneath your face. A quiet strength. A rooted presence. A glow without performance. You stopped. People moved around you in their usual hurry. But the world inside you slowed to the pace of truth. You did not adjust your posture to appear composed. You did not tilt your chin to look confident. You simply stood there, unmasked. The reflection met your eyes. This time you did not look away. Your throat tightened, then opened. A warmth rose behind your eyes. Not sadness. Return. You were seeing yourself for the first time. Not the self built by expectations. Not the self curated for acceptance. The original one. The one who remembers. A scene unfolded from earlier years. You saw yourself bending to keep peace, shrinking to be loved, twisting to avoid being left. You watched it like an old film, frame by frame. You did not judge the character in the story. You held them with the tenderness of someone who finally understands. The film melted into light. You felt space open inside your chest. Not empty, open. You walked away from the window with new weight in your footsteps. Not heaviness. Substance. Reality around you seemed to adjust. People glanced at you, then looked again as if something unnamed had shifted. You did not perform your presence. You inhabited it. Real-world scene in a cafe. A friend sat across from you with familiar chatter. They spoke in stories that once pulled you into fixing. Today you listened without merging. They paused mid-sentence. They stared at you as if seeing someone new. Are you all right? Lingered in their eyes. You smiled with a quiet, grounded yes. They softened. Your presence created space for truth, not by speaking, by being. The conversation shifted from surface to soul without effort. You were not trying to lead it there. Your authenticity invited it. Breathe. One breath. One more. That night you lit a small lamp beside your bed. The room held a hush like a temple of your own making. You sat with your spine long and your palms open. You spoke inward without sound. Show me who I am beneath everything I learned to be. There was no lightning, no vision, no chorus of answers, only a slow unfolding within your chest, a petal turning toward its own sun. You felt your inner gaze tilt inward. You saw a version of you untouched by praise or rejection, a version unaltered by comparison, a version that existed before you ever tried to earn belonging. They looked at you with a calm, ancient knowing. You realized you had been seeking this version in others' eyes for years. You finally found them in your own. The two of you merged like water finding itself in water. There was no effort, only recognition, only return. You opened your eyes, and the room seemed brighter, though nothing had changed. Your face felt different from the inside, not rearranged, reclaimed. You lay down with the lamp still glowing. You did not need to make promises. The shift had already rooted. Sleep came without searching. Morning waited with a new kind of softness. Stay. Let this truth settle. You are not becoming someone new. You are seeing the one who was always here. When the masks fall, you rise. When the seeing begins, you cannot return to forgetting. This was not the beginning. This was the unveiling. The next layer is already forming in the quiet. If this found you right 333, stay close. More is coming for you. Morning arrived without noise. Light slid across the floor like a soft hand. You opened your eyes and did not rush to fill the silence. Something inside you was listening again, not to the world, to yourself. You breathed and felt a small ache move through your chest. It was not pain, it was recognition, the body remembering what it means to stay. For so long you had been leaving yourself in small ways. A yes that meant no, a smile that hid fatigue, a kindness that cost too much. Each moment a quiet departure from home. You did not blame those choices. They were ways to survive when love felt conditional. You only noticed how much of you had been scattered across other people's comfort. Today something in you whispered, "Come back." And you listened. You sat up slowly. Your bare feet met the cool floor. Your body felt real and solid. The air carried the scent of rain. You stood and walked to the mirror. The reflection waited without judgment. You met your own eyes and said without words, "I am here now." The voice inside you answered, "Finally, breathe, stay here. Let this truth land." The day moved quietly. You went about tasks with steady presence. No rush, no performance, just being. You made coffee and tasted it fully. You washed a plate and felt the warmth of water on your hands. Every motion a return, every breath a declaration, "I will not leave myself again." Later, you met someone who once held power over your peace. Their words carried the same subtle pull. Old reflexes stirred. The part of you that wanted to please rose halfway to the surface, then stopped. You noticed it like a wave that no longer had permission to break. You breathed once. The quiet voice spoke within you. "We do not have to earn what should be natural." You smiled. You listened, but did not bend. Their tone shifted when your energy did not open. The balance realigned. You felt no victory, only equilibrium. When the meeting ended, you walked outside into cool wind. You felt lightness at the center of your chest, not from winning, from staying true. Seen memory, evening years ago. You sitting in a small apartment listening to someone's anger. You tried to soothe them. You took blame that was not yours. You swallowed truth to keep peace. You remember the silence after they left, the air heavy with words unsaid. You stared at the wall and felt smaller. You told yourself it was love, it was fear. You carried that night for years. Today, you finally placed it down, not in resentment, in release. You said quietly to the memory, "I forgive the one who thought she had to disappear to be safe." You felt your shoulders drop. You felt breath return to spaces it had not reached in a long time. A soft warmth unfolded between your ribs. You realized healing is not a roar. It is the moment you choose not to abandon yourself again. Breathe. Stay. Let the peace expand. A quiet scene. You at a dinner table with friends. Laughter circling like small fires. Someone makes a joke that crosses a line. The old you would have laughed along. The new you stays silent. Not in shame. In clarity. Your eyes meet theirs. The room feels the shift. The energy rearranges itself around your truth. No one knows what changed, but you do. You did not leave yourself to keep belonging. That night, you walk home under low clouds. Rain begins as mist. Streetlights blur in the droplets. You feel steady under the grey. You think of all the places you once diluted yourself to fit. Jobs, friendships, dreams that were never truly yours. Each memory passes like a train fading into distance. You wave goodbye to none of them. You simply keep walking. The road ahead glows faintly. It does not promise ease. It promises truth. Inside your chest, something roots deeper. The part of you that once apologized for existing begins to rest. The part of you that once explained your intuition begins to smile. You are not fighting to be heard anymore. You are choosing not to betray your own hearing. Later at home, you light a candle. The flame moves like a slow breath. You sit beside it and close your eyes. You whisper inward, "What does it mean to stay with myself?" The answer comes not as words, as feeling, a warmth spreading from your center outward, a sense of spine rising through you, a clarity that hums instead of shouts. You realize presence is your truest protection. Every time you stay, you build a bridge back to your wholeness. Every time you stay, the old fractures mend quietly beneath awareness. You open your eyes. The flame sways but does not break. Neither do you. You stand and stretch. The room feels both smaller and more sacred. You move slowly toward your bed. Outside, the city murmurs its night songs. Inside, you only hear your own rhythm, heart steady, breath even, peace earned not by effort but by truth. You lie down and whisper to the dark, "Thank you for teaching me to return." No answer comes, only the deep quiet of understanding. This quiet is your reward. This quiet is your new home. Stay. Let it hold you. You are no longer the one who leaves. You are the one who remains. This was not the ending. This was the anchoring. The next step is already forming under your feet. If this found you right 333, stay close, more is coming for you. The silence changed the moment dawn touched your window. Something in you rose with it like a soft awakening. Between breath and breath, the calling turned into a remembering. Nothing shouted. Everything shifted. You stepped into the day as if the ground recognized your name. The light on the floor moved like a slow tide. You watched it cross the room, and you felt yourself cross with it. This was not the thunder of rebirth. This was the hush before a garden opens. You felt both steadiness and tremor. Not fear. Becoming. You walked to the mirror and saw no performance there. Only a face that belonged to you without effort. The edges of you were softer and truer at once. You placed a hand on the glass and listened inward. The voice within did not argue. It welcomed you. You have been away for a long time. You knew this without grief. Return was already happening under your ribs. You made a simple breakfast and tasted everything. Heat and salt and citrus and the small praise of being alive. You stood by the window while the city breathed below. You looked at the day like a doorway. You stepped through. You remembered the ways you once tried to bloom by force. You pushed. You rushed. You measured yourself against clocks that did not belong to you. Today you put the clocks down. Today you chose water and patience. You felt the inner soil loosen. Roots sought room. Light filtered in without blaze. You were not trying to become someone new. You were letting the original move forward. Breathe. stay here. Let this moment land. Real-world scene late morning at your desk. A message arrived, asking for the easy version of you. Old reflexes reached for apology and shape-shifting. You noticed the reach. You chose stillness instead. Your fingers hovered over the keys, and then you typed one clear line. I cannot take this on today. You pressed send with steady breath. No drama arrived, only space. You felt a soft warmth open behind your sternum. A door had closed without a slam. Another door had opened without a sound. Movement seen, afternoon in your room. You opened a drawer that held the artifacts of an older life. Notes written to survive. Plans written to convince yourself you were in control. Promises written to keep love from leaving. You sat on the floor and read them one by one. You thanked each page for keeping you alive when you felt small. You folded them with care and placed them in a box. You tied a thread around it like a gentle goodbye. You did not throw them away. You released them to a quieter shelf. Your hands moved through the space like a soft wind. You wiped the table. You opened the window. The room breathed, and so did you. A new arrangement took shape without effort. You placed a plant by the light and a book by the chair. You set a glass of water where your hand could find it. You made the future easy for the person who will live here tomorrow. The person is you. Breathe. One breath. One more. Evening arrived with slow gold on the buildings. You walked to the park by the long path. You did not check your phone. You let the world reveal itself at the pace of your steps. Children laughed, and the sound moved through you like bells in warm air. You sat on a bench that knew many seasons. You placed your palms on your knees and felt the weight and blessing of your own body. You asked within, without using words, what does rebirth mean when it does not hurt? The answer came as sensation instead of sentence. A soft pull toward what is clear. A soft release from what is heavy. A quiet yes to what feeds your center. A quiet no to what fractures it. You watched the sky turn from blue to ember. You watched the first star arrive like a thought that remembers itself. You stood and felt a new posture discover you. Not taller, truer. You walked home through the early night. Streetlights made small islands on the road. You crossed from island to island with your attention. You realized you were not seeking signs from above. You were reading the calm in your breath as your map. At home, you cooked and cleaned and prepared for morning. No hurry, no cost. Everything ordinary felt like a temple of motion. You placed fresh sheets on your bed and smoothed them with your open palms. You felt the fabric answer like a tide settling to shore. You did not rush to the next thing. You let the moment complete itself. Breathing space. Breathe. Stay. Let this root. A memory rose from an older winter. You recalled trying to hold a life that did not fit. You recalled waking with a stone in your throat each day. You recalled how you kept saying later to the parts of you that needed now. The memory did not sting. It softened. You saw your past self doing the best they could with the light they had. You pressed a hand to your heart, as if to say thank you for not giving up. The stone was gone. Water moved where rock once sat. Night grew deeper, and the room grew quiet. You turned the lamp to a gentle glow. You sat at the edge of the bed with your spine long and your feet grounded. You spoke inward in the language of breath. I allow my life to become what it has always wanted to be. You felt a slow tide roll through your ribs. You felt your jaw loosen and your shoulders lower. You felt the rise of a new center that did not ask the world for proof. It simply knew. Clarity did not blaze. It warmed. Identity did not shatter. It rewove. You lay back and watched shadows move across the ceiling like soft clouds. Images drifted through the room. Doors you once tried to force now opening by themselves. Rooms you once begged to enter, now dimming behind you. A path unfolding not as a straight road, but as a living stream. You realized you could float and still arrive. You realized that trust is also an action. It is the action of not abandoning yourself in the name of speed. It is the action of tending what is here with the respect you used to give to what was missing. Breathing space. Stay. Let this deepen. A friend texted to pull you into an old story. You read and felt the familiar hook hidden in the words. You answered with kindness and a clear boundary. The conversation turned gentle or ended clean. Either way, you stayed with yourself. Nothing dramatic, everything different. You climbed into bed and pulled the blanket up to your chin. You looked at the ceiling like a quiet sky. You thought of the garden that is your life. You saw new shoots that had not yet broken the soil. You smiled for them in advance. You understood that devotion is not loud. It is a series of small, honest choices made in the direction of your inner compass. You closed your eyes and felt yourself held by your own presence. You listened for the voice that guided you here, and it answered without sound. Keep honoring what is simple and true. Keep letting go of what asks you to leave yourself. Keep watering what grows when no one is watching. You nodded in the dark and felt the yes ripple out through your field. You felt sleep arrive like a tide without edge. Before you drifted, you saw a door at the end of a corridor. It was not bright. It was not locked. It was simply waiting for you to notice it. Your hand reached for the handle without fear. The chapter after this one lives there. You will meet it by walking as yourself. This was not the beginning. This was the soft rebirth. The next layer is already moving toward you. If this found you, write 333. Stay close. More is coming for you. Character count, no spaces. Night leaned against the window like a quiet witness. A single lamp warmed the room with a pale circle of gold. You stood before the mirror and let your name fall silent. No performance, no posture, only breath moving in and out like a small tide. For a heartbeat, the glass showed what you always showed the world. Then the surface thinned as if a veil turned clear. Look, not with eyes alone, with the part of you that remembers. Your face stayed still. Your presence did not. The light and the shadow inside you arranged themselves into truth. Breathe. Stay here. Let this moment land. You saw the practiced smile that never quite reached your eyes. You saw the tilt of the chin that once kept you safe. You saw the careful nod you learned to give when you wanted to say no. Masks, lined like seasons, waited along the edges of the glass. They had names you once lived inside. The dependable one, the soft healer, even when you were bleeding. The quiet storm everyone admired but no one could hold. You did not accuse them. You thanked them for their service and watched them loosen. One softened at the jaw and slid away like fog. Another cracked at the brow and flaked like old paint. The last refused, then sighed, then dissolved into air. Nothing broke. Everything became honest. Memory scene, a hallway washed in school light. A teacher praised your neat answers. Your chest felt hollow while hands clapped. Later you sat alone and practiced how to be likable instead of real. Years repeated the scene in different rooms. You learned to negotiate for love with pieces of yourself. The mirror held those bargains like faint fingerprints. You pressed a palm to the glass, and heat met heat. The reflection asked nothing of you. It only received. You realized this was the first room in your life where belonging did not require translation. Movement scene. The phone lit with a name that always bent your day. A message arrived, dressed as care but heavy with pull. Old reflex rose like a tide trained by habit. You listened to the tide without obeying it. The inner compass pointed home. Your thumbs wrote a simple line. I will not take this on. You sent it. The screen went quiet. The room widened as if a wall had moved. Your shoulders descended like birds landing on safe ground. Choice had become a body feeling, not an argument. Breathe. One breath. One more. Outside, the city carried its soft night hum. You turned the lamp lower and kept looking. The mirror was not a judge. It was a doorway. A figure gathered at the edge of your seeing. It was you from years ago, carrying a bag full of explanations. They set the bag down. You felt the weight slide out of your throat. They stepped closer and touched your hand through the glass. Their eyes were tired but bright with relief. You understood the exchange without words. I will stop leaving you to keep the peace. I will keep you with me when the room prefers a mask. The figure nodded, then merged into your chest like river returning to river. Heat spread across your sternum and fell into your belly. Balance clicked into place like a key. Real world scene. Next morning on the train. You stood near the door with your palm on the rail. An ad above your head promised a life that would fix you. You felt your mouth curve, a quiet smile that belonged only to you. Nothing outside needed to confirm your worth. Your breath became your signature. Across the car, a stranger stared as if seeing a familiar face. Not attraction, recognition. Unmasking has a scent only the soul can smell. You stepped off at your stop, and the air felt new. Not because the city changed, because you were not translating yourself into its language. At work, a conversation tried to press you into an old shape. You kept your voice low and your spine long. No is a holy word when spoken from wholeness. You offered a soft boundary. You did not explain it. You embodied it. The room rearranged around your truth without a fight. Silence scene. Late afternoon light across the floor. Dust drifted like tiny constellations in the lamp beam. You sat on the rug with legs crossed and hands open. You let the day drain through your palms like water. The mirror across the room still held a faint glow. You looked again and saw the last thin film of pretending. It floated like a skin that no longer fit. Instead of tearing it off, you breathed through it. The film lifted on its own and folded like a moth into dark. No ripping, no blood, only release. You thought unmasking would be loud. It arrived like a room exhaling. Clarity did not shout. It settled. Story scene, a dinner you once attended with friends. Someone joked in a way that asked you to betray yourself for belonging. You repeated the laugh they wanted. You went home with a pebble under your heart. Tonight you reached back and removed that pebble. You placed it on the window ledge. Wind rolled over it, and the sound was small and clean. You whispered to the version of you who had to carry it. Thank you for surviving. I will do the living. Breathing space. Stay. Let the ground rise to meet your feet. You opened the window and night air brushed your face. A thread pulled you back to the mirror. This time it showed the architecture under your life. A lattice of choices, some made from fear, some from love, all ready to be revised. You traced the lines with your attention and felt them soften. Purpose did not appear as a headline. It appeared as a series of honest lines you could follow with your feet. You realized unmasking is not the death of identity. It is the release of costume so the body can breathe. It is the return to a face that belongs to itself. Movement scene. You took a pen and a small card. You wrote 3 sentences you could carry anywhere. I stay with myself. I speak from quiet truth. I choose the path that keeps my center whole. You slid the card into your pocket like a warm stone. The act felt ceremonial without ceremony. You walked to the sink, washed the cup, and watched the water turn clear. Every action built a scaffold for the life already arriving. Climax. The mirror steadied and revealed what it had waited to show. Not perfection. Pattern. Not a role. A rhythm. You saw how light in you guides and shadow in you guards. You saw how they trade places like day and night, holding the same sky. You bowed your head to both. The unmasked face did not promise ease. It promised honesty. It promised an end to exile. You could feel the next threshold humming in the corner of the room. Breathe. Stay with it. Let the remembering finish its circle for tonight. This was not the beginning. This was the moment the mirror turned clear and would not cloud again. The next door is already warm to your hand. If this found you, write 333. Stay close, more is coming for you.